Welcome back for part 2 of our deep dive into the Hillside Strangler case. Now, if you thought last week was intense,
oh yeah,
buckle up because things are about to get even darker. This is where we really get into the nitty-gritty of how these horrific crimes were committed.
That's right. Last time we laid the groundwork. But now we're going to take a closer look at the killer's methods, their victims, and that escalating brutality that just terrorized Los Angeles.
Yeah, so the sources we've got, they're packed with chilling details about how Kenneth Bianchi and Angelo Buono actually selected their victims and how they carried out their crimes. It's just unbelievable how they preyed on these young women, often teenagers. And the thing that really gets me is how they use deception to lure them in.
Absolutely, that calculated manipulation. It's a key part of this case, you know? If you think about it, they often impersonated police officers, sometimes even flashing a badge.
Wow, so they were exploiting the very people who were supposed to protect these women.
Exactly.
No wonder their victims felt safe enough to go with them.
They preyed on that inherent trust. It's a disturbing thought in itself.
It really is, and it gets worse. One of the sources mentions that Buono owned an upholstery shop.
Right. And chillingly enough, that shop became their primary location for carrying out these assaults.
I can't even imagine the feeling of being trapped in that kind of place, thinking you're safe with a police officer, and then...
Right. It's truly horrifying. It was a controlled environment, so they could exert their dominance and carry out their sadistic fantasies.
The sources are pretty graphic about the torture they used. They used restraints, assault, and ultimately strangulation. There's even mention of ligature marks found on the victims.
Right. The impressions left on the skin from being bound or strangled. Tragically, they're a hallmark of this case, and a chilling reminder of the killer's need to control and dominate their victims.
It's just heartbreaking. And what's really disturbing is that the violence got worse. With each murder, it's like they weren't just satisfied with killing. It seems like they wanted to inflict as much pain as they possibly could.
You're picking up on a crucial point here. They were perfecting their methods, becoming more and more confident in their ability to exert that control and prolong that suffering.
And then the way they left the bodies, often posed on hillsides visible from the road. It seems like more than just a way to dispose of them.
It's like a form of psychological warfare, and that's actually where the name Hillside Stranglers comes from. Imagine the terror that gripped Los Angeles as these bodies were found, displayed so brazenly. They were sending a message, and the entire city lived in fear.
The sources actually highlight a couple of particularly devastating cases. One is Judith Miller.
Judith was only 12 years old. Her murder marks a turning point in the case, a horrifying escalation in their depravity. It really shattered any notion that they had boundaries or any limits to their cruelty.
I was also struck by Kimberly Martin's story. She was lured with a fake job opportunity.
A classic example of how they preyed on vulnerability. Kimberly was simply seeking a better life, and they used that hope against her. It speaks volumes about their callousness and their willingness to exploit anyone to satisfy their urges.
There's one detail that I still can't wrap my head around. Posing the victims' bodies in degrading ways. Why go that extra step?
That's a question that has haunted investigators and psychologists alike. Some believe it was a final act of domination, a way of stripping their victims of any remaining dignity, even in death. Others speculate it could have been a way of delaying discovery or even taunting the police.
That makes a chilling kind of sense. And thankfully, their reign of terror did end. The sources mentioned Bianchi trying to kill a woman in Washington, but she survived, and she helped bring them down.
Yes, that was a crucial turning point. Bianchi acting alone at this point, he slipped up, and his victim's incredible bravery ultimately led to his capture and the unraveling of the entire case.
It's amazing how one person's courage can have such a huge impact. And then there's the whole story of Bianchi trying to plead insanity, claiming multiple personalities. It seems pretty obvious he was trying to manipulate the system.
Exactly. Bianchi was a master manipulator, as evidenced by his entire approach to these crimes. He even tried to fool psychologists into thinking he had dissociative identity disorder, hoping to escape responsibility for his horrific acts. Thankfully, the experts saw through his facade.
So looking back at all this, what does it tell us? What's the big takeaway from this deep dive into the Hillside Strangler case?
The Hillside Strangler case forces us to confront the darkest aspects of human nature. It challenges us to consider how seemingly ordinary individuals can become capable of such unspeakable acts. It highlights the complexity of criminal psychology and reminds us that evil can often hide in plain sight.
It's a chilling thought, but an important one. This case leaves us with more questions than answers. But perhaps that's part of its legacy. It pushes us to keep searching for understanding, to keep asking why, so that just maybe we can prevent such horrors from happening again. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.